Got it. Let's make this gripping, intense, and unpredictable. Here's part 1 with the tone and depth you're looking for. I was never one to watch the morning news. It always felt like a barrage of problems that weren't mine. A constant reminder that the world was burning somewhere. Somehow. But that morning, something kept me glued to the screen. Maybe it was the anchor's unusually grim tone or the mention of a fire at the Crescent Inn. A place I knew all too well. It was the only upscale hotel in our small town. The kind of place couples booked for anniversaries or people with something to hide chose for discretion. I didn't know why I kept watching. Maybe some sick curiosity. Maybe fate. The footage was shaky. Smoke still billowing from the top floors. Firefighters scrambling in the chaos. Survivors were gathered outside, wrapped in cheap hotel blankets and robes, shivering from the cold or the shock. Probably both. I remember leaning forward, squinting at the screen, not even sure what I was looking for. And then I saw her, Emily, the woman I had spent the last decade building a life with, standing right there, in a white hotel robe, clutching it tightly around her body like it could shield her from the truth that was about to rip through my chest. Her hair was a mess, makeup smeared like she had tried to wipe it off in a hurry. And next to her, just as disheveled, was Sheldon. Sheldon, my so-called friend, the guy I had laughed with over beers, the guy who had stood beside me during hard times. Sheldon, also in a hotel robe. My mind didn't even race. It stopped. It froze. Time didn't slow down. Crashed violently, like glass shattering against concrete. There was no room for doubt. Two people in robes outside a hotel at 7 in the morning after a fire? This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't some innocent coincidence. This was betrayal served on a silver platter, and I was the fool who hadn't seen it coming. My hand trembled as I reached for my phone. Not to call Emily. Not yet. My fingers moved on autopilot, dialing a number I had memorized but never thought I'd need in a moment like this. Hello? Where's Emily? I asked, my voice sharper than I expected. Her sister, Anna, paused. She's here. Asleep. I almost laughed. Almost. Really? Asleep? Yeah. Why? She asked, her tone shifting from sleepy confusion to suspicion. I didn't bother answering. In the background, the news was still playing. Loud enough for her to hear. Loud enough for her to see what I was seeing. I waited for it to click. Took less than 3 seconds. Oh my God. Wait, is that... Yeah. I cut her off coldly. It is. Daniel, Don't. I snapped. Don't cover for her. Don't explain. I don't need it. I inhaled deeply, trying to hold myself together, but it felt like grasping at smoke. I'm filing for divorce. Today. She gasped, and I heard her struggling to find words. I didn't care. And tell Emily that if Sheldon comes near me, he'll regret it. Daniel, wait. Please, she better be out of my house before I get back tonight. I said, each word slow and deliberate. I didn't wait for her reply. I hung up, the silence in the room deafening. I sat there, phone still in hand, staring at the screen as the camera zoomed in again on the crowd. Emily was talking to someone off camera, her expression somewhere between panic and irritation. Sheldon stood beside her, looking equally uncomfortable. Good. They should be uncomfortable. They should be terrified. My heart wasn't just broken. It was obliterated. Not just because of the affair, but because of the audacity. The sheer boldness of it. While I was home thinking my wife was spending the night at her sister's place, she was wrapped up with another man in a hotel bed. A man I knew, trusted, respected. She didn't even bother coming up with a better lie. And now, here she was, caught on live television because of a fire neither of them could have predicted. But the worst part, the part that made my blood boil more than anything, I knew Emily, and I knew that when I confronted her, she wouldn't beg for forgiveness. She wouldn't cry and admit her mistakes. No, she would lie. She would twist every word, every fact until somehow she wasn't the villain. I could already hear her voice in my head. It's not what it looks like. You're overreacting. You're being crazy, Daniel. But this time she wouldn't get the chance. This wasn't going to end in a tearful conversation or empty apologies. This was going to be war. The drive home felt endless. Every red light, every slow driver, Every second wasted felt like a personal attack from the universe. My hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly I thought it might snap. The image of Emily and Sheldon in those damn hotel robes replayed in my mind like a sick joke I couldn't escape from. I didn't need to ask why or how long. It didn't matter. The only thing that mattered now was the confrontation. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was already there. Good. She got the message. But part of me knew she wouldn't make this easy. She never did. I stepped inside, the house eerily quiet except for the faint sound of drawers opening and closing upstairs. She was packing. At least she understood one thing. She wasn't staying here tonight. I didn't call out to her. I wanted her to feel the weight of my presence. I walked up the stairs slowly, deliberately, my footsteps echoing through the house. When I reached our bedroom door, it was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, and there she was, hastily shoving clothes into a suitcase, her back to me. Going somewhere? I asked, my voice calm. Too calm. She froze for a moment but didn't turn around. Daniel? She began, her tone already dripping with manufactured innocence. She zipped the suitcase and finally faced me. Her expression a carefully crafted mixture of confusion and annoyance. I can explain. I laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the sheer audacity of that phrase made me feel like I was losing my mind. Explain? Seriously. I stepped closer, my eyes locked on hers. Go ahead. Explain how you ended up in a hotel robe with Sheldon at the Crescent in this morning. Her lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time, I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes. Good. She should be panicking. Were you having a business meeting in bed? Discussing spreadsheets under the covers? I sneered. Or wait, let me guess. You were just there to keep each other warm after the fire alarm woke you up from your totally innocent night of... What? Watching movies. Daniel, stop, she snapped, her voice sharp now defensive. It's not what you think. Oh, that's rich, I shot back. You're seriously going to stand there and insult my intelligence? I stepped closer and she took a step back. Two people. In robes. At a hotel. At 7 in the morning. What exactly do you think I'm imagining? She crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. And just like that, the panic was gone. Replaced by that infuriating arrogance she always fell back on when she was cornered. You're blowing this way out of proportion. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Out of proportion? I echoed, barely able to keep my voice steady. My wife, told me she was staying at her sister's place last night. And then I see her on live TV with another man at a hotel. And I'm the one overreacting. She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic about forgetting to take the trash out, not catching her in the middle of an affair. It's not like that, Daniel. Sheldon and I, it wasn't planned. I barked out a bitter laugh. Oh, so it was spontaneous cheating? That makes it so much better. I stepped closer until we were inches apart. Don't lie to me, Emily. Not now. She squared her shoulders, her voice turning cold. What do you want me to say? Yes, I was with him. So what? It's not like you've been a saint either. I froze. What the hell does that mean? Oh, please, she scoffed. You've been so distant lately. Always working, always distracted. What did you expect me to do? Sit around and wait for you to remember I exist? I stared at her in disbelief. You're blaming me for this? I asked, my voice shaking with anger. You're seriously trying to make this my fault? She shrugged, a smug smirk playing on her lips. If you had been more present, maybe I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. My hands trembled at my sides. Get out, I whispered, barely able to contain the storm inside me. Daniel? I said get out. I roared, making her jump. Take your suitcase. Take your lies, and get the hell out of my house. She glared at me, grabbed her suitcase, and brushed past me without another word. But just before she reached the door, she turned around, her voice dripping with venom. You'll regret this, she said softly, like a promise. I stared at the empty doorway long after she left, the weight of her words settling in my chest like a stone. But regret? No. I had plenty of emotions swirling inside me. Rage, betrayal, heartbreak. But regret wasn't one of them. Not yet. The silence after Emily left wasn't comforting. It wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. Like the calm before a storm that you know is going to rip everything apart. I stood there, alone in our bedroom, staring at the half-empty closet where her clothes used to be. The suitcase was gone, but the damage was still here, thick in the air, poisoning everything it touched. I wanted to scream, to break something, to make the world feel as shattered as I did. But instead, I just sat down on the edge of the bed, head in my hands, replaying the confrontation over and over. Every word, every glance, every moment when I wanted to shout at her, call her every name I could think of, but held back because part of me, the pathetic part, still couldn't believe this was real. But it was. And the worst part? I wasn't even close to done with her yet. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I grabbed it, expecting another call from Anna, or worse, Emily. But it wasn't. It was a text from someone I hadn't talked to in months. Andrew, my oldest friend. The guy who knew me better than anyone else. Saw the news. Call me when you can. I'm here, man. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the call button. But I couldn't. Not yet. Talking to him meant admitting this wasn't just some nightmare I was going to wake up from. Talking to him meant it was real. So instead, I shoved the phone in my pocket, grabbed my keys, and left the house. I needed air. I needed something to distract me from the weight pressing down on my chest. I drove aimlessly for a while, the streets a blur. But my subconscious knew exactly where I was heading. The Crescent Inn. I didn't even realize it until I pulled into the parking lot. The charred remains of the top floor still visible against the morning sky. Fire trucks were gone, but yellow caution tape blocked off part of the entrance. People were still milling around, reporters, hotel staff, and a few guests who hadn't been forced to leave yet. I shouldn't have been there. I knew that, but something pulled me in. I needed to see it for myself. The scene of the crime. I got out of the car, keeping my head down, hoping no one would recognize me from the same news broadcast that had shattered my life hours ago. As I walked closer, my eyes scanned the area, searching for, I don't know, clarity, closure. But then I saw someone I wasn't expecting. Not Emily, not Sheldon. Andrew. He was leaning against his car, arms crossed, eyes locked on me the moment I stepped closer. Figured you'd show up here, he said quietly, pushing off the car and walking toward me. What are you doing here? I asked, my voice rough. I told you, I'm here. He studied me carefully, like he was afraid I might break right in front of him. You okay? I laughed bitterly. Do I look okay? He didn't answer. He just nodded, because what else could he say? Come on, he said, jerking his head toward his car. Let's get out of here. I wanted to protest, to tell him to leave me alone. But the truth was, I needed someone. Anyone. So I followed him. We drove in silence, the tension so thick it was hard to breathe. Finally, he pulled into an empty lot near the park, killed the engine, and turned to me. Tell me everything. And so I did. I told him about the news report, the phone call to Anna, the confrontation with Emily. Every detail. Every moment when I wanted to believe she wasn't capable of something like this, and every moment when I realized I was a fool for ever trusting her. When I finished, Andrew let out a low whistle. Damn, man. I knew Emily could be intense, but I never thought she'd. Yeah. I cut him off. Me neither. He was quiet for a moment, then asked the question that had been gnawing at the back of my mind since I saw Emily and Sheldon together. How long do you think it's been going on? I shook my head. I don't know. And honestly, I don't care. A day, a month, a year. It doesn't change what she did. Fair. Andrew nodded. But, you know Sheldon's a snake, right? I frowned. What do you mean? Andrew leaned back, crossing his arms. I mean, the guy's always been slimy. Remember last year when he accidentally texted you that weird message about Emily? You brushed it off. But, man, I always thought something was off with him. My mind flashed back to that moment. Sheldon had sent me a text late at night, something cryptic about Emily, but when I asked him about it, he laughed it off, saying it was meant for someone else. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? But now, knowing what I knew, it felt like a warning I had ignored. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, my voice sharp. Because you were happy, man, Andrew said quietly. Or at least I thought you were. and I didn't want to be the guy who threw a grenade into your marriage if I was wrong. But now, he shook his head. Now I'm wondering what else we all missed. I stared out the window, my mind racing. How many lies had Emily told? How many signs had I missed? But one thing was clear. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment betrayal. This was deeper, darker, and I wasn't going to stop until I knew everything. I didn't go home. Couldn't. Not yet. Sitting in that car with Andrew, my head swirled with questions I couldn't answer. How long had Emily been lying to me? Was it just Sheldon, or were there others? And the worst thought of all, had I ever really known her at all? Andrew must have sensed where my mind was going because he cleared his throat and said, "Look, I know this is the last thing you want to hear right now, but maybe it's time to stop thinking like her husband and start thinking like someone who needs the truth." I turned to him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Emily's not going to tell you anything real. She'll twist it, flip it, make you feel like the crazy one. But there are other ways to find out what you need to know." "Like what?" I asked, though I already had a feeling where this was going. "Like her phone," Andrew said bluntly. "Her texts, emails, whatever. I know it sounds shady, but come on, man. She didn't exactly respect your privacy, did she?" The idea made me uneasy, felt wrong, invasive. But then I thought about her smug face during our confrontation. The way she blamed me like I was the villain in her little drama. If she wanted to play dirty, fine. I could too. "I don't have her phone," I muttered, shaking my head. "She took it with her when she left." Andrew raised an eyebrow. "Did she? Because if I remember right, she always had that second phone for work that she kept in the kitchen drawer. The second phone." My heart pounded. She always said it was just for work emergencies, something she barely used. I hadn't thought about it in months. But now I felt like an idiot for not questioning it sooner. Without another word, I jumped out of Andrew's car, my mind set. "I need to check," I said, already heading back to my own car. "I'll call you later." "Daniel," Andrew called out before I got in. "Be careful. Whatever you find, you can't unsee it." I nodded, but his warning barely registered. I had to know. When I got home, the house was eerily still. Emily was gone, her presence erased except for the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. I headed straight for the kitchen, pulling open the drawer where she always kept that second phone. It was still there, charged even, almost like she hadn't expected me to look. I hesitated for half a second before powering it on. No passcode. Typical Emily, confident no one would dare invade her space. I opened her messages first, scrolling through the contacts. Most were work-related, but one name made my blood run cold. Sheldon. I opened the thread, my stomach twisting into knots. The messages started months ago, flirty at first. Jokes about me that made my jaw clench in anger. Then more personal. Plans to meet up. Complaints about how boring I had become. How predictable. I felt sick reading the words from my own wife, the woman I had loved for years, tearing me down like I was some inconvenience in her perfect little world. But it got worse. One message from Sheldon, just a week ago, sent a chill down my spine. "We need to be more careful. If Daniel finds out, it's over. He's not as dumb as you think." Her reply was instant. "Relax. He's too trusting. Even if he gets suspicious, I'll handle it." I gripped the edge of the counter, trying to steady myself. My hands were shaking so badly I thought I might drop the phone. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she had caused me. But I forced myself to keep scrolling. And then I found it. The message that changed everything. "I told you," Emily had typed. "Once the divorce is settled, we're free. And trust me, by the time I'm done with him, he won't have anything left to fight me with." My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't just an affair. This was a plan. A calculated betrayal. She wasn't just cheating. She was setting me up to lose everything. The house. The money. My dignity. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the phone. My head was spinning, my pulse racing. She hadn't just broken my heart. She had been plotting to destroy me from the start. I needed air. I needed to think. But most of all, I needed a plan. Because if Emily thought she could outplay me, she was dead wrong. I stood there for what felt like hours, the weight of Emily's betrayal pressing down on me like a crushing tide. Every word I had read echoed in my mind, each one sharper than the last. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was ruthless, calculated. Every moment of our marriage that I thought was real now felt like a carefully orchestrated lie. She had played me, and worse, she thought I was too stupid to see it coming. But now I knew, and knowing meant I had the upper hand. I wasn't going to confront her yet. No, Emily wanted a game. She was about to get one. But this time, the rules were mine. I grabbed the phone, snapping pictures of every incriminating message, every damning detail. If she wanted to take everything from me, I'd make sure she lost everything first. My heart pounded with rage, but underneath it, a cold, calculating part of me had awakened. She thought I was done. She thought I'd just crumble. But Emily underestimated me. That was her first mistake. And Sheldon? Oh, he was going to regret ever stepping into my life. My first call was to Andrew. "Did you find something?" he asked the second he picked up. "Oh yeah," I said, my voice steady but dangerous. "She's been planning this for months. The affair, the divorce. She wants everything. She's been setting me up." "Jesus," Andrew breathed. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to beat her at her own game," I replied without hesitation. "But I need your help." "Anything, man," he said immediately. "Meet me at the Hollow in an hour," I said, naming the quiet bar on the outskirts of town where no one would bother us. "We need to talk strategy." "Got it. See you there." I hung up and took a deep breath. Emily thought she was clever, but she had made one fatal error. She had underestimated just how far I was willing to go when pushed. And now, she had pushed me too far. The Hollow was nearly empty when I arrived. Dim lighting, worn-out booths, and a bartender who didn't ask questions. Exactly what I needed. Andrew was already there, nursing a beer, his expression grim. "Tell me everything," he said the moment I slid into the booth. I handed him my phone, letting him scroll through the screenshots. His eyes widened with every swipe, his expression shifting from shock to disgust to rage. "Unbelievable," he muttered. "She was planning this the whole time?" "Looks like it," I said bitterly. "And Sheldon? He's not just some fling. He's in on it. He's helping her." Andrew clenched his jaw. "We have to do something." "We will," I assured him. "But we have to be smart. Emily's too careful. If we confront her now, she'll twist it. She'll find a way to make me the bad guy. We need proof. More than just texts." Andrew frowned. "What kind of proof?" I leaned in, lowering my voice. "I need to know everything she's been up to. Bank accounts, hidden assets, anything that shows she's been planning this. And Sheldon? I want dirt on him too. Anything we can use." Andrew hesitated. "Daniel, that's serious stuff." I met his gaze. "I'm serious. She wants to ruin me, Andrew. She wants to leave me with nothing. I'm not letting that happen." He nodded slowly. "Okay, I have a buddy who, let's just say he's good at finding things people want hidden. I'll reach out." "Do it," I said firmly. "The sooner, the better." As we talked, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Emily. Her name alone made my blood boil. "We need to talk." I didn't reply. Let her sweat. Let her wonder what I was thinking. But one thing was certain. She wanted to talk. She'd get her chance. And when she did, it wouldn't be the conversation she expected. I stared at Emily's text, the screen glowing in the dim light of the bar. "We need to talk." 3 simple words, but coming from her, they felt like a threat. She wasn't the kind of person who reached out unless she had something to gain. Whatever this was, it wasn't an apology. It wasn't regret. Emily never did anything without an angle. Andrew leaned over to glance at my phone. "You gonna answer her?" "Not yet," I muttered, sliding the phone face down on the table. "She wants to talk? She can wait." "Think she suspects something?" I shook my head. "If she did, she wouldn't be texting me. She'd be scrambling to cover her tracks. No, this is something else. She thinks she still has control." I let out a dry, humorless chuckle. "She has no idea." Andrew nodded, but there was a tension in his eyes. "This is dangerous, man. She's not like most people. She doesn't just lie. She manipulates. She's cold, calculating. I don't want to see you get pulled into her games. Too late for that, I replied darkly. She started this game. I'm just making sure I finish it. Andrew took a sip of his beer, then leaned in, his voice low. I texted my buddy, by the way. He's good. Really good. If Emily's hiding anything, money, property, another phone, whatever, he'll find it. Good, I said, feeling a small spark of hope amidst the anger. I want every single secret laid bare. Andrew nodded, then hesitated. And, Sheldon? A slow, dangerous grin spread across my face. Sheldon's going to wish he never crossed me. When I got home that night, the house felt emptier than ever. Emily's clothes were gone, her favorite shoes missing from the rack by the door, but little traces of her lingered everywhere. Her perfume in the bathroom, the half-empty bottle of wine she'd left on the counter, the framed photo of us from our anniversary. I wanted to smash it, to erase her completely, but I stopped myself. Not yet. Let her think everything was normal. I checked my phone again. Another message from Emily. I deserve a chance to explain. I scoffed out loud. Explain? She didn't want to explain. She wanted to manipulate, to twist the narrative until somehow I was the villain and she was the victim. Not this time. But then, a third message popped up. This one different. It's not just about us. You don't know everything. I froze, rereading the message. Not about us? What the hell did that mean? For a brief moment, doubt flickered in my mind. What if there was something more? Something I hadn't uncovered yet? No. I shook my head. This was Emily. This was her game. She was trying to pull me in, make me question myself. Classic Emily move. Still, something gnawed at me. What didn't I know? My phone rang, jolting me out of my thoughts. Andrew again. Hey! I answered, leaning against the kitchen counter. Got something? Andrew said, his voice tense. It's bad. My stomach dropped. What is it? My buddy found something. Emily's been transferring money for months. Small amounts, but consistent. At first, it looked like she was just siphoning it off into a personal account. But then he dug deeper. And, I pressed, my grip tightening on the phone. And that account is not just hers. Sheldon's name is on it too. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. They've been building a life together behind my back. I whispered, barely able to contain the rage simmering beneath my skin. Worse, Andrew added grimly. There's another account. Offshore. Under a fake name, but it's Emily. She's been stashing money there too. A lot of it. Why? I asked, though the answer was already clear. Divorce settlement, Andrew confirmed. She's been planning to clean you out, Daniel. Take everything and leave you with nothing. I clenched my teeth, fury bubbling up inside me. Not if I stop her first. Be careful, man, Andrew warned. Emily's not going down without a fight. I exhaled slowly, my mind racing. Neither am I. The next morning, I did something Emily would never expect. Called her. She picked up on the first ring, her voice smooth and calculated. Daniel. Finally. Let's talk, I said simply. A pause. When? Tonight. Our place. No more games. Another pause. Then, fine. Tonight. I hung up without another word. Emily wanted to play with fire. She was about to get burned. The hours leading up to that night felt agonizingly slow. My mind spun endlessly, every scenario playing out like a twisted movie in my head. Emily thought she could manipulate me, charm her way out of this, or worse, twist the knife even deeper. But tonight wasn't about her winning. Tonight, I was going to dismantle every lie she had built, piece by piece. By the time evening rolled around, the house felt like a pressure cooker ready to blow. Every second that passed brought me closer to the moment I'd been craving: confrontation, but on my terms this time. At exactly 8 p.m., I heard the faint sound of her car pulling into the driveway. My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression calm, controlled. She wanted to see me broken. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. The door creaked open, and there she was, Emily. She walked in like she still owned the place, her chin held high, her expression carefully crafted. She wasn't here to apologize. She was here to win. But so was I. Daniel, she said softly, her voice dripping with that familiar blend of sweetness and steel. Thank you for agreeing to talk. I didn't respond. I just gestured for her to sit. She did, gracefully crossing her legs, her eyes scanning me, probably looking for cracks in my armor. She'd find none. Say what you need to say. I finally broke the silence, leaning back in my chair, arms crossed. She exhaled dramatically, like this was exhausting for her. Look, I know you're hurt. I never wanted it to come to this. I almost laughed. You never wanted it to come to this? I echoed, incredulous. Emily, you planned this. You didn't just stumble into bed with Sheldon. You orchestrated the whole damn thing. Her eyes narrowed. Don't make me the villain here, Daniel. Things between us haven't been perfect. There it is, I muttered. The classic if you had just been better excuse. Save it. She glared at me, her mask slipping just a little. Fine, she snapped. Yes, I was with Sheldon. And yes, I've been planning to leave. But don't act like you're innocent in all this. I leaned forward, my voice low and sharp. You don't get to twist this around. I trusted you, loved you, and while I was building a future for us, you were busy stabbing me in the back. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Love isn't enough, Daniel. Not when it's one-sided. I felt my blood boil, but I stayed calm. Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night? She smirked. I sleep just fine. Good. I shot back. Because when I'm done, you won't. Her eyes flickered with something. Doubt, maybe even fear. But she quickly covered it. What are you talking about? I leaned back again, feigning ease. I know everything, Emily. The offshore account. The money you've been siphoning. Sheldon's name on the transfers. All of it. Her eyes widened for a split second before she masked it with indifference. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone, showing her the screenshots Andrew's contact had dug up. Am I? Her face paled slightly, but she recovered quickly. So what? It's not illegal to prepare for a divorce. No, I agreed. But fraud is. Hiding assets during a divorce? That's illegal. And guess what? I have proof. Her confidence wavered, and I felt a surge of satisfaction. You wouldn't, she hissed. Wouldn't I? I leaned in, my voice dropping dangerously. Emily, you've spent months planning to destroy me. Did you really think I wouldn't fight back? She clenched her jaw, her mind clearly racing. What do you want? I smiled coldly. Simple. You leave with what's fair. Nothing more. No offshore accounts. No hidden money. You get your share and walk away quietly. Or... I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. I take all this evidence to my lawyer, and trust me, you'll end up with nothing. She stared at me, fury dancing in her eyes. You think you've won? I know I have, I said softly but firmly. She stood abruptly, grabbing her purse. This isn't over, Daniel. As she walked toward the door, I called out, Oh, and Emily? She paused, turning slightly. Tell Sheldon he's next. The door slammed shut behind her, but I didn't feel relief. Not yet. The game wasn't over, but the pieces were finally moving in my favor. The silence after Emily left wasn't calm. It buzzed with tension, a static charge in the air that hadn't yet found its release. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from adrenaline. She thought she could walk in here, throw out a few manipulative lines, and I'd cave. Typical Emily. But not this time. Not after everything I knew now. I paced the living room, my mind racing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Emily was like a cornered animal now, dangerous, unpredictable. And Sheldon? That snake had been too quiet through all of this. Something was off. Emily wasn't the type to handle things alone. No, she had a plan B, and Sheldon was probably it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Andrew. How'd it go? He asked immediately. She tried to spin it, I said, still pacing. Blamed me, of course, but I showed her the evidence. She knows I'm not playing around. Think she'll back off? I let out a short, humorless laugh. Emily? Back off? Never. She's already planning her next move. Andrew was silent for a moment. Then we need to be ready. Exactly, I agreed. And I'm starting with Sheldon. Andrew sighed. What's the plan? Sheldon's a cocky idiot, I said, my mind already working through the details. He thinks he's won. I need to catch him off guard. Andrew chuckled darkly. You know where he'll be. I smirked. Yeah, the guy's a creature of habit. Same bar, same time, every week. I'll meet you there, Andrew offered. No, I said quickly. This is something I need to do alone. I knew exactly where to find Sheldon. The guy was predictable to a fault. Every Thursday night, without fail, he'd be at the Iron Stag, nursing overpriced whiskey and hitting on anything with a pulse. Tonight would be no different. As I walked into the dimly lit bar, my eyes scanned the crowd. It didn't take long. There he was, sitting at the far end of the bar, laughing too loudly at something the bartender said, his arrogance practically radiating off him. I felt my jaw clench. This was the guy Emily had chosen over me? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Losing control wouldn't help me now. I needed to be smart. I approached slowly, sliding onto the stool next to him. He didn't even glance at me, too busy texting on his phone. Probably Emily. Perfect. Rough night? I asked casually. He froze, the voice clearly familiar. Slowly, he turned his head, and when he saw me, his smirk faltered for just a moment before he forced it back into place. Daniel, he greeted, leaning back with fake confidence. Didn't expect to see you here. Didn't expect to be here, I replied smoothly. But, you know, life's full of surprises. He chuckled, though it was forced. Look, man, I know things are complicated right now. I raised an eyebrow. Complicated? That's an interesting word for sleeping with my wife. His smile faltered again, but he quickly recovered. Hey, it's not personal. I laughed sharply. Not personal? You were in my house, Sheldon. We had beers together, and you were screwing my wife behind my back. How exactly is that not personal? He sighed, as if this whole thing was inconvenient for him. Look, Emily came to me. What was I supposed to do? I leaned in, my voice low and dangerous. Say no. He scoffed. You really think she would have stopped? Emily gets what she wants, Daniel. Always has. I gritted my teeth, but forced a calm smile. Yeah, well, she doesn't always keep it. His eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned back, playing it cool. Let's just say, Emily's little plan to ruin me? It's not going as smoothly as she thought. Sheldon chuckled, shaking his head. You really think you can outsmart her? I already have. I shot back. But you're just collateral damage to her. He frowned. What are you talking about? I leaned in again, my tone dripping with false sympathy. She doesn't care about you, Sheldon. You're just a pawn. The moment you stop being useful, she'll toss you aside. His confidence wavered. You're lying. I smirked. Am I? Ask yourself this, why hasn't she told you about the offshore account? The one with all the money she's been hiding. Guess whose name isn't on that account? Yours. His face paled. That's not true. I shrugged. Believe what you want. But when she's gone, and you're left with nothing, don't say I didn't warn you. I stood up, tossing some cash on the bar. As I turned to leave, I whispered over my shoulder, Tick-tock, Sheldon. Your time's running out. Walking out of that bar, I felt a sense of satisfaction I hadn't felt in days. Sheldon was rattled, and a rattled man makes mistakes. Let the pieces fall where they may. The cold night air hit me like a slap as I walked out of the Iron Stag, but I welcomed it. My head was still buzzing from the confrontation with Sheldon. I wanted to believe I'd planted a seed of doubt deep enough to break him, but something gnawed at me. Emily was too smart to rely on someone like him for anything important. There had to be more. Something I was missing. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another text. Not from Emily this time. We need to talk. Now. It's important. Sheldon. I smirked, knowing I had rattled him. Good. But I wasn't about to dance to his tune. Not yet. I ignored the message, heading home to regroup. But as I drove, my phone lit up again. This time with a call from Andrew. Daniel, he said the moment I picked up, his voice tense. Something's off. What now? I asked, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. My guy did some more digging, Andrew said quickly. Emily's been in contact with someone else. Someone we didn't expect. Who? I demanded. There was a pause. Then Andrew dropped the bomb. Your lawyer. My blood turned to ice. What? Yeah, Andrew confirmed. She's been meeting with Michael. Not just recently. For months. I pulled over to the side of the road, my mind racing. Michael Bennett had been my lawyer for years. I trusted him. Or at least I thought I did. You're sure? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Positive, Andrew said. Emails, calls, even a few meetings at his office that weren't exactly scheduled. I clenched my jaw. She's been one step ahead this whole time, I muttered. Looks like it, Andrew replied grimly. What are you going to do? Call you back, I said, ending the call before he could respond. I sat there in silence, my mind spinning. Emily had infiltrated every part of my life, including the one person who was supposed to protect me in all of this. The betrayal felt like a fresh wound layered on top of the others. But I couldn't let it paralyze me. I needed to act fast. Instead of going home, I turned the car around and headed straight to Michael's office. I didn't care that it was late. I didn't care if he was surprised to see me. I needed answers. When I arrived, the building was dark, but Michael's office on the top floor still had a faint glow coming from the windows. Perfect. I let myself in with the spare key he had given me years ago, just in case, and made my way up the empty stairwell. My footsteps were silent, my pulse pounding in my ears. When I reached his office, I didn't bother knocking. I pushed the door open, and there he was, Michael sitting behind his desk, looking startled as hell to see me. Daniel? He said, quickly minimizing whatever was on his computer screen. What are you doing here? I shut the door behind me and locked it, never taking my eyes off him. Cut the crap, Michael, I said coldly. How long have you been working with Emily behind my back? His face paled. What are you talking about? Don't, I interrupted, stepping closer. I know everything. The meetings, the calls, the emails. Don't insult me by denying it. He swallowed hard, leaning back in his chair. Daniel, it's not what you think. I laughed bitterly. Oh, that's original. Where have I heard that before? He sighed, rubbing his temples. Emily, she approached me months ago, said she wanted to protect herself if things ever went south. You never what? I snapped. Never thought I'd find out? Never thought you'd betray me like this. It's not like that, he insisted. I never gave her any information that could hurt you. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Then why has she been 2 steps ahead this entire time? Michael opened his mouth to respond, but my phone buzzed again. Another text from Sheldon. I know something you don't. Meet me. Alone. Now. I stared at the message, my gut telling me this was more than just desperation. Sheldon had something big. Without another word to Michael, I turned and left his office, my mind focused on one thing. Getting to Sheldon before Emily found out. Whatever he knew, it could change everything. The streetlights flickered as I drove, my mind racing faster than the car slicing through the empty roads. Sheldon had something to tell me. Something big. And after everything that had happened tonight, I wasn't about to let this chance slip away. Whatever he knew, it could be the final piece I needed to bring Emily's whole twisted plan crashing down around her. I pulled into the parking lot of a deserted diner on the outskirts of town, the kind of place that looked like it hadn't seen a customer in hours. Sheldon's car was already there, parked at the far end where the flickering neon sign barely reached. I killed the engine, my pulse pounding in my ears, and stepped out into the cool night air. Sheldon was waiting inside, sitting in a corner booth, nervously tapping his fingers on the chipped table. He looked up the moment I walked in, and for the first time since this whole mess started, he looked scared. Daniel, he greeted quietly, glancing around as if Emily might materialize out of thin air. Thanks for coming. Cut the crap, Sheldon, I muttered, sliding into the booth across from him. What do you know? He exhaled shakily, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Look, I screwed up. Okay? I know that. But Emily, she's dangerous, man. More than you think. I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Dangerous? What? Is she planning to poison me next? No, listen. He leaned in, lowering his voice. It's not just about the money or the affair. She's been playing both of us. Both of us. I echoed, narrowing my eyes. What the hell are you talking about? She never planned to stay with me, he admitted, his voice laced with bitterness. At first, I thought she did. She said she loved me, that she wanted to build a life together. But then I found out she's been talking to someone else. My blood ran cold. Someone else. Sheldon nodded. Some guy named Marcus. I found messages on her other phone last week. She thought I wouldn't see them, but I did. Marcus, I repeated, the name unfamiliar and unwelcome. Who the hell is Marcus? I don't know much, Sheldon admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. But from what I read, he's not just some random guy. Emily's been planning something with him. Something big. I clenched my fists under the table. Bigger than stealing all my money and running off with you? Sheldon swallowed hard. Yeah, Marcus isn't just some fling. He's connected. I don't know how, but Emily kept mentioning something about final steps and securing everything before Marcus arrives. She said once he's here, nothing can stop her. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Emily wasn't just betraying me. She wasn't just using Sheldon. She was building something bigger, something far more dangerous than I had imagined. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice sharp. Because, Sheldon admitted bitterly, I'm scared. Emily doesn't leave loose ends. And right now, I'm a loose end. I leaned back, trying to process everything. Marcus, final steps. Emily's plan wasn't just about a messy divorce or siphoning money. She was playing an entirely different game, one I didn't even know the rules to yet. Do you have proof? I asked, my voice deadly calm. Sheldon nodded. I took screenshots of the messages before she deleted them. I was going to confront her, but I knew I wouldn't walk away from that. Send them to me, I ordered. He hesitated. Promise me something first. What? I asked impatiently. Promise me that when you take her down, you take him down too, Sheldon whispered, desperation in his eyes. Marcus, Emily, all of them. I stared at him for a long moment before giving a slow nod. I promise. He quickly pulled out his phone, typing furiously before my own buzzed with new messages. I glanced at them briefly, the contents enough to make my stomach churn. Emily's conversations with Marcus weren't just flirtatious. They were methodical, calculated. Mentions of offshore accounts, legal loopholes, and something that made my blood freeze, references to me being handled once the plan was complete. She's going to try to take me out of the picture, I muttered, realization dawning like a punch to the gut. She's not just leaving you, Sheldon whispered. She's erasing you. My phone buzzed again, and this time it wasn't Sheldon. It was Emily. We're not done yet, Daniel. See you soon. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Emily wasn't backing down, but neither was I. The moment I saw Emily's text, a chill settled over me that I couldn't shake. We're not done yet, Daniel. See you soon. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a plea. It was a promise. Emily wasn't retreating. She was regrouping. I looked up at Sheldon, who was already eyeing me nervously. What? He asked, shifting in his seat. I held up my phone. She knows. His face paled. Knows what? That I'm onto her. That we're onto her? I corrected, pocketing my phone. And trust me, Emily doesn't send messages like this unless she's already 5 steps ahead. Sheldon looked like he was about to throw up. What do we do? We, I repeated, raising an eyebrow. There is no we, Sheldon. You're just as guilty in this mess. Hey, he hissed, leaning in closer, his voice desperate. I gave you everything I know. I'm screwed if Emily finds out I talked to you. You're screwed either way. I shot back coldly. But if you want any chance of getting out of this, you'll stay out of my way. He nodded quickly, but his eyes were wide with fear. Good. Fear kept people honest, at least for a little while. I left the diner without another word, my mind a whirlwind of fragmented pieces that didn't quite fit together yet. Emily, Sheldon, Marcus, and now this message. She was planning something, and I was running out of time to stop her. As soon as I got into my car, I called Andrew. Daniel? He answered immediately. What happened? Sheldon cracked, I said, pulling out of the lot. Emily's working with someone named Marcus. There's more to this than just the money. She's planning something big. Marcus, Andrew repeated, sounding as confused as I felt. Who the hell is Marcus? No idea, I admitted, frustration boiling over. But Emily's messages to him? They're talking about me like I'm some problem to be handled. Andrew swore under his breath. We need to find out who this guy is. Exactly, I agreed. Can your contact help? I'll ask, Andrew replied. But Daniel, be careful. If Emily's willing to go this far, she won't hesitate to take it further. I know, I muttered, gripping the wheel tighter. But she's not the only one who can play dirty. I barely slept that night, my mind a relentless loop of worst-case scenarios. Every noise outside made me tense. Every shadow felt like a threat. Emily's text haunted me. We're not done yet. What the hell did she mean? The next morning, Andrew called me, his tone urgent. I've got something. Marcus, I asked immediately, sitting up in bed. Yeah, he confirmed. And it's bad, Daniel. Really bad. Tell me, I demanded. His full name's Marcus Hale, Andrew started. Ex-lawyer. Disbarred a few years back for embezzlement and blackmail. He's a fixer now, helps people disappear. I felt my heart skip a beat. Disappear? Not just physically, Andrew clarified. Financially, legally. He wipes records, manipulates documents, makes people vanish on paper. If Emily's working with him, she's not just trying to take your money. She's trying to erase you entirely. My blood ran cold. She wants to destroy my life. Not just destroy it, Andrew said grimly. Rewrite it. I clenched my jaw, the rage inside me boiling over. Then we have to stop her. There's more, Andrew added. Hale has a history of handling problems for his clients. Permanently. Felt like the air had been knocked out of me. You're saying Emily might… I don't know, Andrew interrupted. But if she's desperate enough… Yeah, my mind raced. Emily had always been ruthless, but this was beyond anything I had imagined. I need to meet him, I said suddenly. Who? Hale? Andrew sounded alarmed. Are you insane? If Emily's working with him, I need to know what he knows, I insisted. If I can get to him before she does, maybe I can stop whatever she's planning. This is dangerous, Daniel, Andrew warned. Hale's not like Sheldon. He won't hesitate. I don't have a choice, I replied. Emily's counting on me being too scared to act. She's wrong. Andrew sighed heavily. I'll see what I can do. Thanks, I muttered, hanging up. But as I sat there, trying to piece together my next move, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Meet me at the warehouse on 5th. Tonight. I have what you need. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. I didn't know who it was from. But one thing was clear. The clock was ticking, and Emily's game was about to come to a violent end. The message stared back at me from my phone screen, its words like a whisper in the dark. Meet me at the warehouse on 5th. Tonight. I have what you need. No name. No explanation. Just a time, a place, and a promise. I didn't trust it. But trust didn't matter anymore. Not when I was already in too deep. The hours until nightfall dragged on. Each minute a reminder that I was racing against something I couldn't see. Emily was out there somewhere pulling strings. And Marcus Hale? He was the kind of man who thrived in shadows, the kind you didn't cross unless you were ready to face the consequences. But I wasn't backing down. Not now. By the time the sun set, my decision was made. I tucked a pocket knife into my jacket. Not much, but enough to feel like I wasn't walking in blind. As I drove through the empty streets, every shadow felt like a warning. Every flickering streetlight a signal that I was in dangerous territory. The warehouse on 5th was as deserted as I expected. Old, rusted, and barely standing, it looked like the kind of place where secrets went to die. My headlights sliced through the darkness as I pulled up, the engine humming like a heartbeat in the silence. I killed the ignition and stepped out, every sense on high alert. The air was thick with dust and tension, the faint sound of dripping water echoing through the massive, empty space. A single light flickered above, barely illuminating the figure waiting for me near a stack of crates. Sheldon. Are you kidding me? I muttered under my breath, anger bubbling up as I approached him. You sent the message. Sheldon raised his hands defensively. I had to, he said quickly. I didn't know if you'd come otherwise. You better have a damn good reason, I growled, stopping a few feet away from him. I do, he insisted. I found something. About Marcus. I folded my arms, narrowing my eyes. Start talking. Sheldon pulled out his phone, scrolling through his screen before holding it up. I hacked into Emily's cloud storage. My eyes widened. You did what? She used the same password for everything, he explained with a nervous chuckle. Same one she used to unlock her phone when she was with me. I got in and found this. He handed me the phone. What I saw made my blood run cold. Photos. Dozens of them. Emily with Marcus Hale. In airports, restaurants, even my own house when I wasn't home. There were documents too, legal papers, fake IDs, bank transfers. But one document stood out, making my heart pound violently in my chest. A death certificate, with my name on it. I looked up at Sheldon, my breath shallow. What the hell is this? She's not just divorcing you, he whispered, his voice shaking. She's planning to fake your death. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Why? She wants everything, Sheldon said. The money, the house, the assets. If you're dead, there's no divorce settlement. No fight. She gets it all. My mind reeled. Emily wasn't just trying to ruin me. She was trying to erase me. Completely. She hired Marcus to make it happen, Sheldon continued. He's done it before for other clients. Fake deaths, disappearances. And when the person doesn't cooperate, sometimes they don't have to fake it. I clenched my fists, my mind racing. Why are you helping me, Sheldon? What's in this for you? She's cutting me out too, he admitted, bitterness in his voice. I thought we had something, but she was just using me, like she used you. Before I could respond, the faint sound of footsteps echoed through the My eyes darted to the entrance, where a shadowed figure was slowly approaching. Someone's here, I hissed, handing Sheldon his phone back. He looked just as panicked as I felt. It's her, Emily. She stepped into the flickering light, her face calm but her eyes burning with something darker than rage. She wasn't surprised to see me. She wasn't even surprised to see Sheldon. Well, she said smoothly, crossing her arms. Look at this. My husband and my... What? Ex-boyfriend now? Having a little meeting without me? Emily? I growled, stepping forward. This ends tonight. She smirked. You always were dramatic, Daniel. But you're right. It does end tonight. Before I could react, she pulled out a small gun from her coat, aiming it directly at me. Emily, Sheldon shouted, stepping between us. What the hell are you doing? Cleaning up loose ends, she replied coldly, not even sparing him a glance. Both of you. I lunged forward as the gun fired, the shot echoing through the warehouse like a thunderclap. Sheldon cried out, falling to the ground as the bullet grazed his arm. I tackled Emily, the gun clattering to the floor as we struggled. She was stronger than I expected, fighting with a fury that came from knowing she was about to lose everything. But I wasn't letting her win. With a final push, I pinned her to the ground, breathing hard. The rage in her eyes flickered, replaced by something else. Fear. The sirens outside grew louder. Andrew had called the police, just as I asked him to before I left home. Emily laughed bitterly beneath me. You think this is over? She hissed. You'll never be free of me, Daniel. I leaned in close, my voice calm but deadly. No, Emily. You'll never be free of me. The police stormed in, pulling me off her and handcuffing her as she screamed in rage. And in that moment, I knew. The war was over. I had won.